Alright guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to be ranking all of Arteta's signings for Arsenal. So I have them all here. This is an up-to-date list of every single player Arteta has signed either permanently or on loan. And we're just going to be ranking them, seeing how good they are. Because, I personally think that Arteta has been really, really good in the transfer market. But I want to see if that's actually true when you look at each of his signings individually. And so, yeah, I just figured now was a good time with Arsenal seemingly doing nothing in the market for this January. Figured we could take a look at some of Arteta's past transfer business. So, quick reminder we are going to be judging them as signings, not players. So, we're going to be taking into account things like their price tag, and how much hype there was around them, what they are expected to do, and then obviously what they actually delivered on the pitch. So, quick run through of the tiers. So, we have amazing, obviously, for players that have been amazing. Great is for players that are, really good, but just not quite at that next level. Solid is for players that have been, pretty decent. They've come in, they've done a job, but they haven't been incredible. Needs time is for players that I just think need more time, you know, in order for us to see what they really got. Didn't play just for players that haven't played enough to judge them. And then bad is obviously for players that just didn't do enough. So let's start off. We're just going to go in order, and we're going to start off with Jorginho. So Jorginho came in for 10 million, I think it was, last January, 10 million, 12 million, something around there. And obviously, we missed out on Caicedo to get him because Caicedo was judged to be too expensive. And Jorginho has been, I think he's been a decent signing. He has had some awful moments, like against Tottenham. But overall, he's done a job. And so I'm going to put him in solid. I think, yeah, for 10 million or whatever we paid, it was not a lot of money, but he's not really been bad. He's done a job. He's served the club well, I think. So we're going to put him under solid. Cedric, plain and simple, not good enough. I don't know why Arteta signed him. He was one of Arteta's first signings. But when you look at our right backs at the time, we had Maitland Niles who was playing right back. We had Bellerin. We had, I forget who else we had. But we already had enough right backs at the club. We didn't need him. And he just never proved why he should be at Arsenal. He's just defensively not good enough, physically not good enough. He just doesn't really bring anything to the team. So, got to put him under a bad signing. Moving on to Matt Ryan. Of course, he came in on loan, and he played like 2 games. So, I'm just going to put him under didn't play. I don't really know what to say. I mean, I saw him play at the World Cup for Australia, and he was terrible. But apart from that, I didn't even see him play for Arsenal, so I can't really judge him. Next, we got Trossard. For me, Trossard goes under a great signing. Just the amount of money we paid like 28 million. The bullet we dodged with Mudryk, we could have paid 90 million for Mudryk, and got an absolute flop on our hands. But instead, we got Trossard, who has been really, really good since he's come in. I talked about Trossard in my match reaction, and I said, he's not the most exciting player to watch. He's not the flashiest, but he always gets the job done. He's always putting up the numbers, goals, assists, whatever you want. He does it. He had 10 assists last season in half a season at Arsenal. So, really, really good business. And yeah, he's just a fantastic player. Next up, we got Zinchenko. Don't really know what to do about Zinchenko because there are times when he's up here, and then there's times when he's all the way down here. He's just a very inconsistent player. Clearly has some special abilities going forward. I think technically he's one of the best players in the squad. But when Zinchenko is costly, he is so costly. He's cost us points this season, last season. I'm going to put him under solid. We didn't pay a ton of money for him. I think we paid 35 million, 40 million, something along those lines. Which for a player of his quality is a very, very good price because he is a good player. But it's just those big moments where he just has a lapse in concentration or he's positionally not there. That is just, it's just terrible. So we got to put him under solid. Again, still has been a good signing. I'm not, upset at Arsenal for signing Zinchenko, but he just hasn't been at that next level that I think we hoped he was going to be. Next up, we got Runarsson, however you say it. Awful. Awful, awful, awful. He is the reason why we needed to bring in Matt Ryan, because he was so atrocious that we couldn't have him as a backup keeper. I don't really know what else to say. Same thing for Pablo Mari. Again, a player I'm not sure why we signed him. I know all our center backs at the time were awful. We had David Luiz, Socrates, Mustafi. They were all terrible. But has Pablo Mari really been any better than them? I mean, I guess you could say he's been better than Mustafi, but really? Really? Like, is that the level that we really want at Arsenal? Absolutely not. So, yeah, I'm glad he's not at the club anymore. Was never good enough, and it was just a terrible, terrible signing. Next up, we got Thomas Partey. Now, this is another tricky one because when he's actually playing, he's up here. Like, he is absolutely incredible when he's on the pitch playing. The issue, and again, because we're judging him as a signing, cost £50 million, and he hasn't been available. He's missed huge chunks of, the last 3 seasons with injury. He missed, I think last season was his best season in terms of fitness, and also in terms of performance. But even still, he missed a bunch of games at the start, and then in the middle of the season, he missed a bunch of games through injury. So that's why I'm going to put him under a great signing, because he was brought in to be that Patrick Vieira replacement. Just that kind of dominating player that goes in there and just controls the midfield. And he does that whenever he plays. But if you're only available for, 2/3 of the games, then, there's nothing really that we can do about that. Next up, we got David Raya. For me, he needs time. He's been good. He hasn't been incredible. But I can kind of understand that given the circumstances, given the uncertainty of his future with him only being on loan. And I just think next season, when we bring him in permanently, I think he's going to be a much, much better player, much more confident. So yeah, I just think that Raya needs time. Which, if he's going to be our number one, we have to hope that he gets better, because he hasn't been. I wouldn't even say he's been better than Ramsdale. Like, I wouldn't even say we have upgraded by bringing him in. So, as Arsenal fans, we got to hope that he gets better. And I think he will. I think he's got the potential to be a really, really good goalkeeper. Next up, we got Kai Havertz. For me, I'm going to put Havertz under needs time as well. I know he's been improving recently. The last few months he's actually been pretty decent. But there's still too many games where he just goes missing. He doesn't do enough. And maybe I'm just looking at it through, rose-tinted glasses where, I'm an Arsenal fan. I want the signing to work. Maybe he should just be, considered a flop and put here. But I'm not ready to do that just yet. For me, he needs a couple more months. I think by the end of the season, we'll know what kind of player he's going to be. And again, we just got to hope that, he actually is able to turn his form around. Next up, we got Odegaard. Straight up amazing. We don't really need to explain a whole lot about Odegaard. He is the most technically gifted player in the entire squad. He came in as, I think most people were saying he was an overhyped talent, that he wouldn't make it in the Premier League. And he has been so good. Became captain of Arsenal at 23. He's just incredible. He's done everything that you could ask for in a player. He's played as a number 10. He's played as a number 8. This season, he's playing, deeper. He's got the technique to do all of those jobs. He's got the brain to do all of those jobs. He is just an incredible, incredible player. And he only costs 35 million as well. So I would say he's Arteta's best ever signing. When you think how cheap he was, when you think about how many people question the signing, and then when you look at what he's done, what he's produced, is absolutely special. Next, we got Tomiyasu. Same thing with Partey. Like, when Tomiyasu's playing, he's up here. It was very cheap as well, 20 million from Bologna, I think. But the injuries have just really held him back. So I'm going to put him down under solid because that's what he's been. Not expensive, a reliable player when he comes in. You can always expect a good performance from him. But just his availability, I think, has held him back. So we got to put him under solid, which isn't bad, by the way. I'm not, slating these players by putting them under solid. I'm saying they've been good. There's just things that have held them back from getting to that next level. Next up, Ben White. For me, he goes under a great signing. Came in 50 million. Probably was a bit overpriced coming out of Brighton. I don't think he was a 50 million pound player at Brighton. But since he's moved to Arsenal, I think he has been a 50 million pound player. Playing out of position as a right back. I think he's arguably been better at right back than at center back. And, he's very consistent, he's very available. And yeah, he's just had a really, really solid last 2 seasons. I think this season he's been a little bit inconsistent, but he's also been injured. He's been playing through an injury, so I think that explains a bit. But yeah, Ben White has just been he's just been a very, very good player. Next up, we got Declan Rice, and I know that there's going to be a lot of Arsenal fans that are ready to just put him right up there. And I think in the future he will be. I think he might arguably be the best signing in, Arteta's reign. I think he might overtake Odegaard in that respect. But for me, I'm not ready to put him up here after just half a season at the club. Because again, as a player, he's right up there. He might even be the best player at the club when you consider all the things that he can do. But as a signing, again, 105 million British transfer record at the time, and he's only been here for half a season. So for me, I'm going to put him under the great signing category, which is still impressive, to be considered a great signing for 105 million is really impressive. And I have no doubt that in the future, he is going to be right up there. But for now, with only half a season in, we're going to leave it at great. Next up, we got Jesus. So for me, Jesus, he goes into solid. I think he came in with a lot of hype. People saying that he was going to compete for the Golden Boot. And he's just not been that. He's been a very good signing. He's been a very influential signing when you look at how we play when he's in the team. I think everyone plays better when Jesus is in the team. I think his energy, his work rate just spreads to everyone else. But when you bring him in as a striker, you expect him to score goals. And he just hasn't scored enough goals for him to be considered, in this top level as a striker. And there's also, again, the issue of injuries. Missed a huge chunk of last season. He's missed a significant part of this season as well. So, we just have to take that into consideration as well. So for me, Jesus goes under solid. Next we got Lakonga. Plain and simple, not a good signing at all. I think he cost 15 million. So he wasn't outrageously expensive, but it just hasn't worked. Like, he just hasn't looked confident when he's played. He hasn't looked, he hasn't shown any of that potential that we bought him for. So for me, yeah, for me, he has to go under a bad signing. Just hasn't been good enough. Austin Trusty, I've never seen him play for Arsenal, so I'm just gonna put him under hasn't played. Same with Timber, played the first half against Forest, and then he got injured, so we can't really judge him on half a game. So I have no doubt in the future he's gonna be really really good, but for now, haven't seen him in the Premier League. So same thing with Matt Turner. Played like one Carabao Cup game, one FA Cup game. We went out in the first round of both of those last season. And he played like one Europa League game too. So I just don't think you can judge him off of that few games. All right. Who we got next? We got Kivior next. So Kivior, for me, he needs time. I get, that he hasn't been amazing, but he's also been played out of position. He's been played at left back when I think it's very clear that he isn't a left back. I think if you play him at center back, I think he's a decent defender. I think he definitely has potential to be pretty good. And so for me, he just needs time. But I would also not be opposed if we get a decent offer this summer. I would not be opposed if we let him go. But if we're going to keep him, I don't think it's fair to just write him off yet. I think he just needs some more time to settle in, find a good position to play, and yeah, we'll see. We'll see what he can do. Next up, we got Ramsdale, and for me, he is the only other player that can go into the amazing signing category. If you look at how much he was doubted coming in, nobody wanted him. Nobody thought that he was good enough. Obviously, off of the three relegations in a row, and he came in and he was exceptional. Most of our early clean sheets, his first season was him. It was Ramsdale making, incredible saves after incredible saves. And, yeah, he's made some mistakes, but every goalkeeper makes mistakes. And, last season he was one of our best players. Was one of the reasons why we were in a title race to begin with. If you look at, his distribution, I get it's not at Raya's level, but it wasn't like he was De Gea or Leno or one of these keepers that just cannot play out the back. He was very, very decent with his passing and, his shot stopping, his big saves in big games. Think Tottenham away, Liverpool away. Those are things we haven't seen out of Raya. Which I'm not saying he can't do that. I'm just saying we haven't seen it from him in an Arsenal shirt. So for me, Ramsdale, absolutely incredible. For me, it's borderline criminal of Arteta to drop him. But that's I guess that's just the way it is. So yeah, for me, he goes under an amazing signing. Next, we got Gabriel. For me, he goes into great. I think if you look at he had some pretty rash moments. He's done some pretty stupid things. Cost us some points here and there. But if you look at the last 2 years especially, he's really ironed that out of his game. And he's genuinely one of the best defenders in the Premier League. He's the most underrated defender by far. Nobody talks about how good Gabriel is, but he's been incredible since he's come in, and again wasn't hugely expensive. So we just gotta rate him as a really really good signing. Not quite at this level. I think in the next few years, like next 2 years, he is going to go up to this level because I think his partnership with Saliba is so good. I think him individually, just as a defender, he is so good. So I think the more he puts those past kind of shaky performances behind him, I think he could easily, like Declan Rice, I think he could easily move up into this category. But for now, we'll put him as a great signing. Next up, we got Willian. Yeah, less said the better. I was thinking about making a category called Willian because that's how bad he was, but I just couldn't do that. So the less said the better. Yeah, I just don't want to talk about him. He was atrocious. Same thing with Tavares. I mean, Tavares wasn't as bad, but still, he was okay going forward. But on the ball, I don't think he really offered enough. His defending, it was like Zinchenko on steroids. He was just running around like a headless chicken. Had no idea what he was doing. And yeah, Tavares just not. He just wasn't good enough. Wasn't a good signing. I get why we bought him. He was cheap. We needed a backup for Tierney, but Tavares was just not it. He was just not it. Fabio Vieira. Fabio Vieira is a tricky one because I don't think he's been very good, but I think he also needs time. I think he's clearly a player with a high ceiling, a lot of potential, but he just hasn't gotten enough game time to really cement a place in the team and really kick on and put some performances together. So for me, I wouldn't write him off. I think he just needs time. And lastly, Marquinhos played like one game and then he went out on loan, so can't really judge him. So, anyways, let me know what you guys think. What did I get right? What did I get wrong? So yeah, make sure you let me know. And as always, I will see you all in a bit.